Hi, I'm Louis Springford. No disease can physically spread around our bodies because every symptom is an appropriate biocomputer subsystem response to a particular situation. But can disease physically spread from one body to another? No. And in this video, you'll confirm for once and for all that no disease other than malnutrition or injury can be caused by forces outside yourself. You'll see how the germ theory of disease got started. You'll see how what is used as proof that germs cause disease is actually proof that germs don't cause disease, a giant misunderstanding that led to improvements in our health and to new public health issues. Most importantly, you'll know how to immunize yourself against contagious diseases. Let's get started. Introducing the germ theory of disease. It states that microorganisms, which are tiny creatures that can only be seen with a microscope, can invade healthy organisms and cause disease. It's proof that bad things happen to you to make you sick. It provided the foundation for public sanitation, life-saving surgery, antibiotics and vaccines, the pesticide industry, a whole new set of personal hygiene practices, and a vast array of sanitizing and disinfecting products. But infectious diseases have not been eliminated. In fact, they're on the rise. New diseases are coming into being, and the antimicrobial technology itself is leading to serious public health issues. Another problem is the great vicious moral debate. As ugly as any religious disagreement, we use the germ theory of disease to blame others for our symptoms and even to enforce medical procedures on other people without accepting valid scientific arguments in either direction. Science means forming a hypothesis and then ruthlessly testing to see if it's true every single time. If we won't question whether the germ theory of disease is true every time, then it's more accurate to call it the germ religion of disease. Should we risk making people sick by using medical technology to fight germs, or should we risk allowing people to get sick from those germs? Morally speaking, option 1 is the obvious choice because the chance of getting sick from germ-fighting medical interventions is low, but if you catch certain preventable diseases, you could get really sick. And option 2 is the obvious choice because medical injury can be extremely serious or fatal, and why would you choose that when the diseases could be minimized by good health practices? Well, never mind the morality. In a few minutes, you'll be able to make a rational scientific decision instead. Louis Pasteur was a 19th century French chemist who showed that germs ferment food to produce delicious food products such as yogurt and wine. Germs also produce rotten milk and vinegar. That is, food plus germs produces fermented food and rotten food. Before this, people believed that supernatural forces made food either ferment or rot, but Louis Pasteur showed it was germs, and therefore you can preserve food by killing microbes and by preventing new microbes from getting in. In his honor, this process is called pasteurization. But then Louis Pasteur made a giant and totally wrong logical leap. He said that whatever germs do to rot milk and grapes also makes people sick. Other scientists of the day spotted this illogical connection. One of them was Louis Pasteur's enemy, Antoine Béchamp, who held that illness comes about when tissues become unhealthy. Claude Bernard was friends with Pasteur, but agreed with Béchamp. Bernard held that we get sick when we've gotten out of balance. Have you ever noticed that milk inside cows doesn't ferment or rot? Why don't grapes ferment on the vine? If you want to make fermented dairy products or wine, you've got to remove these things from their life source. Only then can the microbes do their work. This is because germs can only proliferate in tissues that are no longer in use by their host organism. The role of germs is to break down dead tissue, which frees up nutrients to go back into the food web. What does this have to do with disease? Well, when you have a conflict related to survival or protection of your body, your biocomputer will increase the amount of tissue in the part of your body that can best respond to that conflict. Once the conflict is resolved, these excess tissues die off. In other words, they're no longer needed by the host. Microbes, if they're present, will eat the dead tissue. This is what is diagnosed as infection. But the symptoms are the result of the healing, not the germs. German physician Robert Koch proposed a 4-step test to prove the germ theory of disease. 1, you have to find the germs in sick people but not in healthy people. 2, you have to grow the germs in a separate place. 3, you have to give those germs to a healthy individual, causing them to get the same disease as the first person. 4, you have to grow the same germs from the second person. The germ theory of disease instantly flunked the test because Koch kept finding healthy people who were full of germs. The germ theory of disease also flunked at step 3, when Bernard, Béchamp, and others consumed body fluids from cholera patients and gave germs to all kinds of people, willing or unwilling. Time and time again, nothing happened. But Koch couldn't believe the science. He decided that he was getting germs from healthy people because they were asymptomatic carriers of disease. This is the point when it became religious dogma instead of science. The germ theory of disease also flunked the test at step 1 when Louis Pasteur discovered that people could be sick but not have any germs. But Pasteur also couldn't believe the science. He decided that sick people without germs must have germs anyway, but those germs were just too small to be seen. This was total BS, scientifically speaking, but the rest, as they say, is history. Viruses are little tiny chunks of free genetic material without a cell body of their own. To be pathogenic, that is, disease-causing, they have to invade the control center of the cell and then take control, just like in the cancer myth, followed by duplicating themselves, killing the host cell, and then invading multiple other cells. Louis Pasteur is credited with discovering pathogenic viruses, but in his lifetime the technology never existed to actually discover a virus. The word virus was just an old Latin word meaning thing that makes you sick. In 1931, the electron microscope was invented, but still pathogenic viruses were not seen. In 1953, the structure of DNA was discovered, but still pathogenic viruses were not seen. In the 1990s, researchers realized that genes don't control cell behavior. Therefore, viruses, if they exist, simply can't make you sick. In 1990, Dr. Stefan Lanka isolated and characterized a living chunk of DNA in sea algae. It turns out that in every liter of seawater there are over 100 million viruses of various kinds, none of them having any connection whatsoever with any disease. They're just little free chunks of genetic material. So-called viral diseases occur in one of the 2 younger layers of the body, which respond to ability conflicts and sensing and responding conflicts. Again, the symptoms only occur in the healing phase when tissues are being rebuilt through faster cell reproduction. Perhaps viruses help to play a role in this process. So since germs don't cause illness, does this mean that immunizations don't work? Well, actually, they do work, homeopathically. The origin of homeopathy is the work of Louis Pasteur's friend Claude Bernard. As Bernard observed, disease arises when we become emotionally, psychically, and spiritually out of balance. In other words, when we experience conflict. Homeopathy is the practice of stimulating the biocomputer to rebalance itself by giving your biocomputer an energetic hint, which triggers a warming or cooling effect. Immunizations give you an energetic hint through the body fluid of someone who's resolved that specific type of conflict, which helps you have a biological experience of what it's like to resolve that conflict. It's kind of like if you watched a movie about someone who made it through a zombie apocalypse. You might have a better chance of making it through a real zombie apocalypse yourself. The downside of immunizations is that the process of injecting someone with a foreign substance and the process of putting foreign substances into someone's body can create serious conflicts, especially young people who don't believe in the germ theory of disease. Some of us might experience a profound self-devaluation, a betrayal, a poisoning, entrapment, or fright conflict if you held us down and injected us with anything, even if it was nice stuff. If the germ theory of disease is untrue, why does everyone believe it? Enter Joseph Lister, a 19th century English physician. When he heard of the germ theory of disease, he began practicing antiseptic surgery. Before Lister, hospitals were horrible places with filthy conditions where people developed awful illnesses after having limbs amputated and babies extracted without cleanliness or pain relief. About half the patients died of infection, which is caused by an attack conflict. Lister also used anesthetic though, which is really what made the big difference. If you're unconscious, your body can withstand enormous physical trauma without you experiencing any conflict. And it's conflict that causes disease, not any physical agent. So anesthetic really needs to get most of the credit for ending the horrible infections that people got in hospital, because anesthetic took away the attack conflict. However, cleanliness is also a very good thing. The filth of hospitals before Lister's technique was getting into people's body and creating attack and morsel conflicts, and so the germ theory of disease, while fundamentally untrue, led directly to incredible improvements in medical and public cleanliness, which have certainly been nothing to sneeze at. But now we even have imaginary genetic viral forces to be afraid of, which led to the backward medical philosophy of cancer. The germ theory of disease is also largely responsible for an epidemic of vaccine injury, allergies, germophobia and other phobias, autoimmune disorders, and oversensitivity to tiny things of all kinds. We've become hypochondriacs, having conflicts over everything we eat, drink, touch, smell, even what we hear and see, and so many of us suffer from profound human isolation, especially children, and this results in developmental disabilities and neurological maladaptation. We're also living in increasingly sterile environments, which is dangerous. Fungi, bacteria, protists, and microscopic insects are crucial to your metabolic function. We do indeed spread illness to others, but as the science has been showing for 130 years, it's not because of germs or in fact any physical agent. Every single symptom you have is your own biocomputer's natural and appropriate response to conflict. People share diseases not because we share germs, but because we share experiences. And experiences, not germs, are the source of the conflicts which cause illness. So it becomes obvious that the way to protect yourself from contagious diseases is to stop experiencing the same conflicts as other people. This means looking at the facts instead of accepting religious dogma. Herd mentality is what makes diseases spread. When you think and respond for yourself, you do not share other people's symptoms. How healthy we are depends on how effectively we handle conflict in our life, which ultimately depends on our attitude toward life, others, and ourselves. Even this is pretty simple. All of us naturally have this healthy and healing attitude. I'm Louis Springford. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Until then, be well and have a great day.